This is the 8-Bit Beast, and welcome to the Banjo-Kazooie 80% TAS demonstration. So first of all, I'll explain what a TAS is. Essentially, it's a perfect playthrough of the game without any mistakes. The way I achieve this is by slowing it down and going frame by frame, deciding exactly what buttons to press, and that makes it so there's no mistakes. This is also something called a LOTAD, stands for Low Optimization Tool Assisted Demonstration, which means that I didn't spend years and years trying to make it absolutely perfect. So there will be tiny little mistakes, but you won't really be able to perceive them. Okay, so the first thing we'll notice is that I won't be starting a new game. I'm going into a pre-existing file, and this is something called the FFM glitch. FFM stands for Furnace Fun Moves. Now, what it does essentially is it lets me take all the moves that are on this save file and put them onto a new save file. It's a very odd glitch, but it's used in most Banjo-Kazooie speedruns as the standard, so I've made the decision to use it in this TAS as well. If you've seen the 100% TAS by Hyperresonance, that does not use FFM, but this one will. It's just a bit of a difference. Now, just very briefly, this is an any percent TAS, which means that I'll be getting from the start of the game to the end of the game as fast as possible with no restrictions, apart from using cheats in the sandcastle. So we won't be using any cheats, but we'll be using a lot of glitches to get through the game very quickly. Now, part of FFM, the glitch, is I have to have a game over in a Furnace Fun minigame. What that does is it stores your moves that you have when you go into the minigame, and it restores them the next time you're in the lair. Only difference is the next time we go into the lair will be on a new save file. So we'll have all the moves from this file in our new game, but we won't have anything else from this file. So what I'm doing right now is just dying and getting down to 0 lives so we can game over. And then next life we'll see something called a tile skip. So we have to get to a minigame square. Normally you'd have to answer these 4 questions before it, but we're just going to jump straight to it. From underneath ground pound through, there's a very tiny little bit where you can ground pound through. And in here we're going to see the first of a glitch called a bitclip. I'll let it speak for itself. And there we go, straight through the floor. Essentially what happens there is, in this game, there are teeny tiny little gaps in the floor. So the floor is made up of a bunch of triangles. Where 2 triangles meet, there are sometimes tiny gaps, and these gaps are absolutely tiny. So if you look at 1 pixel on the screen, it's maybe 1/10,000th the size of that pixel. Okay, so timing for a normal speedrun would have just started, and we're going to go through Spiral Mountain. You'll notice that I'm playing in German at the moment, and that's because it saves 1 second on this text box with bottles. And it saves a little bit of time in the Grunty fight as well. So with any percent the speedrun category, we're going to get to the end of the game as quick as possible. You might be familiar with getting notes to open note doors in Grunty's lair, and jiggies to open levels. So we'll see how many of those we end up needing. But we're going to get to the top of Spiral Mountain right now. So we don't actually have any moves yet because FFM hasn't taken effect. And when we enter the lair, we won't have any moves. But the next room that we go into after the lair is when we'll get the moves back. So we won't have the moves right now, but what I'm going to do is another bitclip to void out, and then that will give us the moves for FFM. Now, a very important note with these bitclips, I have used a hack to put Banjo in the correct position for the bitclips. The reason being, if I did every bitclip by hand, it would take me several days to do every single bitclip, which is not realistic for making this LOTAD. This is the standard, and other LOTADs have done it before me, so there's another bitclip to get into Mumbo's Mountain as well. That bitclip into Mumbo's Mountain is a trickier one because it's on a slope, and you need a lot of speed to get through the ground. And the reason that I did the FFM glitch in Grunty's lair without just going into Mumbo's Mountain is because we needed ground pound to do Mumbo's Mountain early. So now that we're in Mumbo's Mountain, we're going to be getting a lot of tokens. You need 20 tokens to transform into the pumpkin, and the pumpkin can raise the water level in Grunty's lair. As of now, that is a requirement to beat Banjo-Kazooie. We don't have any way around that. I will talk about some theories around it later, but there's nothing that actually works in practice. So we're going to be getting tokens. There's 5 tokens in Mumbo's Mountain. You'll notice that I'm going quite out of the way. The reason for that is we have to get almost every single token we can grab at this point, because we'll basically be going to Mad Monster Mansion after this, and we'll need 20 tokens by then. Quick thing to get up by Conga, and we're going to learn eggs from bottles. Now, eggs is the only move that I'll learn in this run, so bottles just gave me 50 eggs, and we're going to bitclip out. And the reason that I'm learning eggs is so that I can get those 50 eggs. Apart from that, we've learned every other move through FFM, so we have all the moves now. Coming up, we're going to see a new type of bitclip. Sometimes I call this a wall bitclip or a non-ground pound bitclip, but basically Banjo will be able to pass through the 50 note door. And there we go. Now, really important, that kind of bitclip is only possible on the PAL version of the game. PAL is like the European or Australian version, compared to what speedrunners would normally use, which is the US version. The reason it's only possible on PAL is because PAL runs at 50 frames a second, NTSC runs at 60 frames a second. Or I guess on Banjo-Kazooie it's 30 and 25, but essentially PAL speeds up Banjo to compensate for the lower frame rate, and that slightly faster speed gives Banjo enough speed to get through the floor. You can still bitclip on NTSC, but you either have to jump from a higher platform or ground pound through the ground. So we're going to see another wall bitclip, or one of those other PAL only bitclips here. You'll notice I'm going to poop an egg before this, and get a Grunty text box. Both of those things are really important because to do one of these wall bitclips, we actually need a lag frame. So the game will lag when it's doing too many things. I had it hit the enemy with the egg and have the Grunty text box show up at the same frame. And we're going to do that again here. Hit the enemy with the egg on the frame that we go through the floor. And those Grunty text boxes are actually on a timer, so they come up every couple of minutes or so. So I had to plan out the route so that that Grunty text box would come up at that perfect time, otherwise we couldn't clip past the 180 note door. And just a reminder that for all these bitclips, I have hacked in the correct positions, but they are all possible to do given enough trial and error. Our next thing is the 350 note door skip, and we're going to fall through from the top. This is going to be more of a traditional ground pound bitclip through, which means that we have to get up a bit higher. You can clip through Grunty's chin with a ground pound, but when you recoil out of that ground pound, you come back inbounds and you can't get past the door. There is floor underneath her chin. That's probably the biggest potential for saving time in this run, is a way to skip 350 note door without going up onto the eye. Now, we're coming into Mad Monster Mansion now. So what we essentially need to do in this run is get the pumpkin and raise the water level, because that will help us get through the lair to Grunty, who's the final boss. Apart from that, we can pretty much skip all the note doors, given enough trying, so it's really just a matter of getting these tokens and getting the pumpkin. And a bitclip into Mad Monster Mansion. Do note that you can get into Mad Monster Mansion without a bitclip. There's another strategy where you jump off the roof and clip into the stair, but bitclips have obsoleted that. And we actually use that bitclip in real-time speedruns, and we do about a 1 minute setup to get it. I'm going to do a TAS jump off this token to save a bit of time, and then we're going to go into the cellar. With a bitclip, of course. That's probably slower, but I thought it was fun, so I left it in. Now, with Mad Monster Mansion, we're going to be essentially just collecting a bunch of tokens, because we need 20 tokens, and we only have 10 so far. So, while I'm getting the tokens in Mad Monster Mansion, I'm going to talk a bit about FFM. So this TAS uses FFM, and there's also another potential category that does not use FFM. Not using FFM means we'd have to learn all the moves in the run, but it has the bonus of you don't have to have a save file already on the cartridge. So it's a little bit cleaner to not use FFM. The reason that I used FFM in this TAS, mainly because that's the standard for real-time speedruns, and because it's faster to use FFM. But also there's some cool tricks in the FFM run. This bit's cool here, ground pound off the bat. But yeah, a no FFM run would go into Treasure Trove Cove to learn flying, and it would have a bit of trouble skipping the 450 note door, so it might go into Frazizi Peak. Another TAS jump off this feather, just to save that little bit of time. A TAS jump is a mid-air jump in Talon Trot. Now, one token in here, and we're leaving. For this next bit of MMM, I'm just going to let you watch some movement without commentary of these last few tokens. Okay, we're skipping some of the maze by going on top, and we've got a token right in the back. I would like to have bitclipped from the token to the beehive, but I checked and there really weren't any bitclips in this bit of the maze, so we do have to go the long way around. We're going to do beehive jump to get out of the maze and grab our last 2 tokens. Just a quick note that I'll make about the German language choice as well. I said that German saves a little bit over a second, so 1 second in Spiral Mountain and a bit more in the Grunty fight. The reason that you don't see that in normal speedruns is because they play on the US version. German is only an option in PAL. And PAL can do the fancy bit clips, but for normal speedruns it's slower. Now we've got the pumpkin, which was pretty much the main goal of this run, so we're just going to leave very quickly. And there we go. The pumpkin can bitclip out like that, but it needs a bit more height. Usually Banjo could ground pound through, but that's not an option here. Now we're going to go and raise the water level. Just while we're on this, I did have a few theories to skip it, and some that are getting a bit close. If you're familiar with Xbox speedruns, there's a glitch called DDA, or Demo Desync Adventure, where you desync the demo and start the run. You make Banjo die in Rusty Bucket Bay demo, and then you start the run in Rusty Bucket Bay. That would skip the water level, but there's no way to do that on the N64 version. And Xbox is slower because it can't do those wall bit clips, and we don't have any way to properly TAS Xbox. The other option for water level skip is you can bit clip through water triangles, and then you could theoretically raise up through a water level triangle. So there's a glitch called Hyperbuoyancy, where if you don't know how to swim, Banjo, when he gets stuck underwater under a pipe, will keep raising upwards and his upward speed will keep increasing. So if you could get his upward speed to increase enough, theoretically he could fly up to the top of the room and skip raising the water level. But the issue with that is when you do hyperbuoyancy and make Banjo rise up, he'll hit the surface of the water and lose all of his speed if he tries to go up through it. So for hyperbuoyancy to work, you would need Banjo to raise up and then clip through, like bit clip through the water from underneath. Unfortunately, I haven't got that to work in practice. I have found spots that would work to bit clip through, but the issue is if you're going too fast, for some reason you can't get through the water. And also, setting it up so that you could bit clip through the water and manage your hyperbuoyancy is a bit unrealistic. So water level skip might happen one day, and it would save a lot of time on this speedrun. But for now, this TAS will just raise the water level normally. That's just like our 810 skip was very important, water level skip is also very important, in theory. Now, just while we're doing this little bit, I'd like to shout out a few people. So first of all, Isotage and Mittens for developing Script Hawk, which helped immensely with TASing this. Ring Rush for some routing ideas and inspiration. He made a few other Banjo TASes, including low moves. That Cow Guy for doing the low A button challenge and some scripts. And Hyperresonance for doing some BK TASing and teaching me a lot about movement. Also the entire Banjo community, of course. So we're doing 450 skip here. Going through the floor, and just watch how many feathers I use. It wasn't many at all. So that was really exciting when I got that to work. In fact, that actually means that I got too many feathers before. A thing about 450 skip is I would like to do a wall bit clip through 450, but unfortunately there's no bit clip spots near that door, so that's an issue. There's sort of a double ground thing. There's like a transparent layer and then a normal layer of ground, and that's preventing us. Coming up is 640 skip as well. You'll be seeing the traditional RTA 640 skip, but theoretically we could wall bit clip past 640 note door, but I had trouble making the lag frame work. And RTA is about as fast anyway. Do note that you could get the lag frame very easily if the shrapnel enemy was in this room and then you could poop eggs onto it. But the issue is, because we haven't been into Treasure Trove Cove, the shrapnel enemy actually isn't here. So if we were doing a no FFM TAS, this room would be a little bit faster because the shrapnel would be here for producing lag. But we're just going to do 640 skip normally here. So we're going to jump onto this ledge and build up a lot of downward speed, clip through the corner of the floor and fly behind the 640 note door. Okay, coming up is 765 note door skip. This is a fairly standard wall bit clip. I discovered during this TAS that pausing can help to create more lag. It can't just create lag on its own, but here it created enough that it caused a lag frame and let me through. So upcoming is Furnace Fun skip, a joint discovery by myself, Hyperresonance and Captain Cole. You can get caught on the corner of Furnace Fun like we saw before, and you can actually use it to gain height and jump across the board. So I discovered getting caught on the corners, and then Hyper and Cole pieced the rest of it together into skipping the entire board. So we'll see it here. If you can see Banjo's shadow, he is jumping on the corner of the white squares. This is not going to be RTA viable. It's incredibly difficult to TAS, but there it is. And 810 note door skip is coming up. This skip is absolutely huge. It saves about 30 or 40 minutes, because otherwise we'd need 810 notes. Now I'm collecting an egg there to get the text box, and when the egg box goes, the cauldron box will start. That cauldron box starting causes enough lag to get through the floor. The reason that I needed the egg text box is so that it would buffer and wait for the cauldron one to come up. There's Door of Grunty skip, building up downward speed and jumping behind it, and we're just getting some eggs for the Grunty fight. Now, it would have been faster for me not to get eggs and just collect them in the fight. But that is one of the things about this being a LOTAD. I'd rather just have the 100 and be safe rather than having to fluff around collecting eggs. But that's a way to save maybe 2 or 3 seconds. Now, as we start finishing this off, I'll note that when this TAS was about to come out, I put up a quiz for people to guess a few things. For example, how long it would be, how many jiggies we'd get, notes, and how many bitclips we would do. If you'd like to see who had the closest guess for that poll, just check the YouTube description of this video. And we're finishing Grunty off here. So 3 eggs for each of these, and we're going to fly up. There will be a glitch coming up which avoids doing some beak bombs. So I'm going to do the first 2 beak bombs normally. And we're going to fly above her and ground pound here. And there we go. So that saves a bit of time over beak bombing normally, and it's also useful in low moves challenge runs. Coming up here is Jinjo statue skip. It's fairly staple for normal RTA speedruns. The first Jinjo statue will come up here, and we're going to poop eggs into it, and then we're going to run off. What this will do is it will overlap the cutscene of the Jinjo statues appearing with the cutscenes of the first one being completed. And that saves a bit of time because we're watching 2 cutscenes at once. Now we've got 3 more statues to hit. Luckily, because this is a TAS, we can just aim without looking, so that's always nice. 3 eggs for each statue. And I'm going to do something fun here and hold off from hitting Grunty with them for now until all 3 can hit her at once. That achieves her being knocked off of where she's supposed to be. So she's supposed to be on that little pillar, but she's down here. Just a little fun thing you can do in a TAS. There's a small glitch coming up called Rocket Banjo. It'll be pretty obvious why it's called that when we see it. There we go. That's starting a ground pound at the same time as a cutscene, and it gives you the upwards velocity from the ground pound without interrupting it. I'm going to use a damage boosting strat in a second. I'm not sure if it's faster, but I thought it was a bit fun. And timing would stop here. So there we go. Now the final timings, if we're talking about TAS timing, that starts from when the console is powered on until the final input, and that is 19 minutes and 28 seconds. The timing that you may be more interested in is the RTA timing, which is similar to it's the same as what the speedrunners use, which is from when you select the file to the final input. So basically it cuts out the FFM setup, and that's 16 minutes and 44 seconds. Do also note that this is done on an emulator and loading times take a bit longer than console. So if this TAS could be done on console, it would be a bit quicker than 16 minutes and 44 seconds, maybe in the low 16s. Comparing that to the current RTA world record, that time is 59 minutes and 41 seconds. So we've saved a lot of time in this run. But of course we don't compare this to RTA because this is using TAS tools, which is a completely different thing. So, I'd like to give a big thanks to the Banjo community. I mentioned a few of these people before, but Isotage, Mittens, Ringrush, That Cow Guy, Hyperresonance, Captain Cole have all been extremely helpful in the TASing scene. I'd also like to thank GDO for hosting this reveal on Banjorace. And you can check the description for an uncommentated version and a link to the stream reveal. Of course, I'd also like to thank the entire Banjo community. I've had a brief RTA career speedrunning this, so they've been extremely supportive and I've loved being a part of it. If you liked this video, please also check out the rest of my channel. There's a rough central theme of speedrunning and TASing, but I pretty much just upload anything I find interesting in a wide variety of games. So it's got a healthy mix of RTA, speedruns, TASes, glitches, tutorials, and even a podcast, plus a whole bunch of other things. So if you like speedrunning, then I think you'll find it interesting. And making a TAS like this takes a huge time commitment, so I do really appreciate the support. As usual, please check the description for any useful information and links to other things that you might find interesting. At this point, I'll let the credits play out without commentary, and thanks so much for watching.
Huh?